And we'll pick up on that last theme in Juanita's piece about the restoration of diplomatic relations between our two nations. Let's talk about it with senior researcher at the Institute for Global Dialogue, Mikatekiso Kubayi. Mikatekiso, good morning to you and thanks. Of course, there's been so much chatter about all of this, but I think a good starting point insofar as establishing the importance of this relationship between our two countries and the restoration of diplomatic ties is to consider, where we are and how we partner already. The US is South Africa's second largest trading partner. We export goods north of $13 billion to the US. How important is this relationship to both countries?
Yeah, thank you for having me, my sister. And good morning to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Well, it's an important relationship, of course. There's no doubt about that. It's a very important relationship and one that South Africa wants to build, and develop further. So there's never been a question about South Africa's interest in building and developing this relationship. The question is on the US side, what the US really intends to do with this relationship. With all of this talk, not once, well, at least to date, I have not heard, also much about how South Africa's domestic policies have hindered U.S. interests, to such an extent that, they would need to take, these sort of actions which are, very strange. South Africa has had relations with the United States for a very long time, and this new development, is of course strange. But of course, yes, I mean, it is an important trading partner. It's a very strategic, trading partner and one that South Africa would like to develop further.
Yeah, I mean, we got more clarity, right? And we'll come back to the Pollock matter in just a moment. But more clarity from U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce yesterday, who, in responding to the Rasool debacle, was talking about those red lines that the U.S. has and positions that South Africa has taken that they find offensive or destructive. This includes the land laws, and we all know about that. Around white farmers in South Africa. Also a growing relationship, Bruce said, between Russia and Iran. And then the genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. You mentioned there, you're not sure about how South Africa's domestic policies have actually affected the US. Nevertheless, they remain top of mind there. And the question is, will South Africa even kowtow to what they're laying on the line as non-negotiables in the restoration of our relationship?
Well, the thing with foreign policy, my sister, is that at best, it ought to at least indicate and display full sovereignty over your options, your decisions. Take the case for the case of the ICJ matter. South Africa has had a long, standing position on the issues pertaining to Palestinian people, right? The rights of Palestinians, and so on. And this position is in line, with many, UN positions on the issue, by the way, right? You've got Israel, which is an occupying state, that has to guarantee certain, rights, that has to guarantee security and all sorts of things, that it must guarantee there. But, you've been having, a serious crisis, in that region for a very long time. Leaders like leaders like Arafat, have come, and gone. Rabin have come and gone, and the issue is still there, with us. Decades later, we're still battling, with this issue. Palestinian territory continues to, shrink, every day, and we've had more than 40,000 people die, in Gaza from the bombings. Of course, South Africa has to take, a particular position if it believes that, look, we suspect, there's a genocide here, happening. It has, like any other country, right? It's a human rights issue. It's a humanitarian issue. Have mercy on young people that are dying, that are being killed, by bombs, and everything. There's a court. It's there for everyone. If the court finds that okay, there is no merit to this allegation, fine. Then that becomes what it is. But South Africa has every right to approach the court, because it feels that, there's a suspicion of genocide, happening there.
Yeah.
That does not mean that South Africa is inherently an enemy of Israel either, because it isn't. But it is against, what is happening, what it sees, as, a possible genocide, happening there. And that's why it's taken these steps. Others have taken similar steps in aid of South Africa when, we had apartheid happening here.
The thing is, Mikatekiso, when you back yourself into a corner in a negotiation, and there's a deep polarity, or even when those negotiations are ultimatum driven, and one person is giving the ultimatum to the other, in this case the US and South Africa, vis-a-vis both its domestic and foreign policy, there's really no room to negotiate. So how do you see this resolving itself? I mean, we'll come to the deployment of the ambassadors and what's likely to happen next. And Ibrahim Rasool, who's now sent packing, I think given until the 21st of March to leave the US and come back home, has been roundly routed on South African soil by a number of commentators that this wasn't the right thing to essentially do. And we'll look at the languaging of Pollock. But we are in a context of brinkmanship. So how do you see it playing out?
Well, firstly, South Africa is, well, at least South African foreign policy makers, I believe, are correct, in that, they have to continue engaging the US administration and so on, because that's what you have to do. You can't resolve an issue without engaging. So they have to continue engaging and, trying to, smooth things out. That's the one issue. The other issue, of course, is, South Africa has to develop, new friends, more friends, develop, already existing, trading relationships with others, right? Continue basically, with its sort of strong, foreign policy that guarantees its sovereignty, independent, sovereignty, exercise agency. There is nothing worse than being told and being managed by someone somewhere else very far away, who has hardly any context of your domestic situation, telling you what to do and what not to do. I mean, Africa has been literally fighting this sort of foreign interference in its affairs for decades. Since the times of the OAU and before that, the battle against colonization and so on. The last thing we need, is this Africa's, most industrialized country to be told, what to do and what not to do by, a foreign power like that. What more other smaller countries, other lesser industrialized countries, on the continent going to do? Lots of analysis has been forthcoming, around this, the nature of the power, that is being exerted over South Africa here, and what it means, for the developing world, and not just Africa, but the global South. That the moment you go against any perceived, U.S. interests, you will be dead. South Africa has to keep doing what it has been doing, project its foreign policy in a balanced manner. It's non-aligned. It's been doing fairly okay. But then, of course, you have to continue to engage the U.S. administration, even if it takes donkey years, if you like.
Yeah, well, to invoke the Latin question, quo vadis, Mikatekiso, now in this moment, what next? Joel Pollock saying in that interview there, anyone else would be nastier than he is. And it's very interesting, the languaging, right, around how America sees itself vis-a-vis South Africa and this potential person becoming the ambassador, and then, responsibly what South Africa does in the wake of Ibrahim Rasool now in terms of our deployment there. How do you think this, again, to look into your own telescope and see how this plays out in the imminent future?
My sister, as much as I want, or all of us, want, the best possible relationship with the United States, but coming from what we are observing coming out of Washington, does not, offer much, room for confidence, does not offer much room for optimism. Right, but be that as it may, it does. We still have to continue because this is a Trump administration. It is not the United States. Right? There will be another administration after 4 years, and there will be another administration after that. Relations between South Africa and the United States will outlive, the Trump administration, and South Africa has to just keep, going. It doesn't look, really encouraging right now. But be that as it may, there's every reason, for engagement, for continued engagement with the U.S. administration, and hope to smooth things out.
Who's our best option from our envoy point of view?
My sister, there's so many. There's so many. I think among the most experienced potential envoys to the United. There are several names. It will be interesting which way DECO decides to go. What sort of experience and what sort of, because usually, I mean, if you send an ambassador to a particular country, you want, to send them with a particular mandate. In this instance, what is the mandate? Firstly, smooth out relations between the two. So for that kind of, engagement, you'd want, your most experienced, your most trusted and solid, possibly even someone who's been there before. Right, who has served as ambassador to the U.S. Before, but it will be interesting. Then quite a number, of potential candidates. Yeah, I wouldn't want to put, a name on it, a number.
You don't want to jinx things. Okay, Mikatekiso Kubayi, thank you very much for your time and for your analysis. We do appreciate it. International relations expert there.